In 1945, a magazine article in the United States described a disagreement inside the British royal family. Princess Elizabeth, the heir presumptive to the throne, wanted to join the war effort. Her father, King George VI, did not want her to do it. His concern was understandable. Elizabeth was not an ordinary teenager. She was the future queen. Her safety mattered, and her training as a princess was already treated as a national duty. But Britain had been at war since 1939. By the time Elizabeth turned 18 in April 1944, women across the country were already working in factories, on farms, in offices, and in military auxiliary services. The war had changed what service looked like. Elizabeth wanted to take part. In February 1945, she joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service, known as the ATS. That decision made her the first female member of the royal family to become a full-time member of the armed services. This should not be exaggerated. Elizabeth did not fight on the front line. Women in the ATS were not assigned combat role. Her royal position also remained visible. She returned to Windsor Castle at the end of the day instead of living in Barrack. But it was still more than a publicity image. She trained as a driver and mechanic. She studied vehicle maintenance, mechanics theory, map reading, and the handling of heavy army vehicles. For a future queen, that mattered. The war gave Elizabeth a lesson no palace education could fully provide. Symbolism becomes stronger when it is connected to visible work. Elizabeth had already seen that lesson at home. When Britain entered the Second World War on September 3, 1939, King George VI addressed Britain and the Empire by radio. During the Blitz, he and Queen Elizabeth chose not to be seen as hiding from danger. Buckingham Palace was bombed on September 13, 1940. After the attack, Queen Elizabeth was reported by the Imperial War Museum's transcript to have said, "I'm glad that we have been bombed. Now we can look the East End in the eye." That phrase mattered because Londoners in the East End had suffered heavily from German bombing. The royal family was still privileged and protected, but they were expected to be present. King George VI and Queen Elizabeth visited bombed areas, troops, factories, Royal Air Force bases, naval ships, and training sites. These visits were designed to raise morale and show solidarity. Elizabeth watched this as a teenager. She was 13 when the war began. Like many children in Britain, she spent much of the war away from her parents for safety, mainly at Windsor Castle. In 1940, at 14, she gave a Children's Hour radio broadcast to evacuated children, urging them to have courage. More public duties followed. In 1942, she became colonel of the Grenadier Guards. On her 16th birthday, she inspected the guards at Windsor Castle. At 18, she launched HMS Vanguard at Clydebank. In 1944, while the king was in Italy, she performed some of his head of state duty. By the time she asked to join the ATS, Elizabeth had already learned that wartime monarchy was not only ceremony, it was visibility, repetition, and public confidence. AI is great, but don't you miss that real human connection when you're trying to learn something new? That's why you need Amazing Talker. It's a one-on-one online tutoring platform where you can learn anything, whether it's English, a new language, music, or history. We have it all. Our tutors are from all around the world, and many of them speak your native language too. More than 4 million students have joined us already. If you want a warmer, more authentic way to learn, just click the link in the description or the pinned comment below. Register now and get $10 off your first lesson. The ATS was part of a much larger mobilization of women. From December 1941, unmarried women aged 20 to 30 could be conscripted in Britain. They could work on the land, interwar industry, or join one of the auxiliary services. As the war continued, more women were brought into the system. By June 1945, the ATS had around 200,000 members from across the British Empire. Its members worked as clerks, telephonists, drivers, postal workers, dispatch riders, ammunition inspectors, and anti-aircraft units. Women could track aircraft and aim anti-aircraft guns, but only men were allowed to fire them. Elizabeth entered this world in the final months of the war. She enrolled as a second subaltern and trained at the #1 Mechanical Transport Training Center. Newspapers and newsreels quickly understood the image. The heir presumptive to the throne in uniform, wearing overalls, working on engines, changing tires, and learning to drive army vehicles. The press called her Princess Auto Mechanic. The name was memorable, but the course had real requirements. Elizabeth worked 7 hours a day. She learned how to maintain vehicles, read maps, and drive heavy army transport. After 5 months, she was promoted to honorary junior commander, the equivalent of captain. To pass her final test, she drove a heavy vehicle alone from Camberley in Surrey to London. That detail keeps the story grounded. This was not combat service, and it did not make Elizabeth ordinary, but it did place the future queen inside a wartime system built around skill, discipline, and usefulness. The war ended before she could use those skills in a larger operational role. Even so, the ATS gave Britain a clear public image of Elizabeth, a young heir who wanted to contribute, not simply be protected. On May 8, 1945, Britain celebrated Victory in Europe Day, or VE Day. The war against Japan continued until August, but in Europe, Nazi Germany had surrendered. That day, King George VI broadcast to the nation. He asked people to remember those who had not survived to see victory. The royal family appeared on the balcony of Buckingham Palace as crowds filled the streets below. Later, Elizabeth was allowed to leave the palace and join the celebrations anonymously. She later recalled, "We asked my parents if we could go out and see for ourselves. I remember we were terrified of being recognized. I remember lines of unknown people linking arms and walking down Whitehall. All of us just swept along on a tide of happiness and relief." The importance of that night is not that Elizabeth became ordinary. She didn't. The importance is that she experienced the crowd from below. She saw how public feeling gathered around the crown after years of bombing, rationing, and loss. Victory did not end hardship. Rationing continued in Britain until 1954. In 1947, Princess Elizabeth used clothing ration coupons for the material for her wedding dress, and the government allowed her 200 extra coupons. That same year, she made the promise that defined her public life. On April 21st, 1947, during a royal tour of South Africa, she turned 21. Speaking from Cape Town, she said, "I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and the service of our great imperial family to which we all belong." The imperial wording belongs to its time. India and Pakistan became independent later that year, and the world Elizabeth inherited was already changing. But the central word was service. By 1947, it was not an abstract idea. She had seen it in her parents' wartime conduct, in women's mobilization, in her ATS training, and in the public mood of VE Day. Elizabeth became queen in 1952, only 7 years after the war ended. Her first prime minister was Winston Churchill, the wartime leader who had stood with the royal family on the Buckingham Palace balcony in 1945. Her reign began in a country that had won the war but was still adjusting to its consequences. Britain was losing empire, rebuilding its economy, and entering a period of rapid social change. This is where a longer view helps extend the story. Elizabeth's reign lasted 70 years and 214 days. During that time, Britain changed from a post-war imperial power to a more diverse, less differential, and more media-driven society. Elizabeth's method was not to become a political personality. She spoke often, but usually in language designed to unite, rather than reveal. She rarely allowed her private opinions to become the story. That restraint can feel distant today, but for a constitutional monarch, distance is part of the function. A monarch who speaks too much becomes divisive. Elizabeth's role was to appear, listen, visit, read state papers, meet prime ministers, and continue. The pattern connects back to the war. During the Blitz, she saw that the monarch had to be visible in crisis. In the ATS, she learned that public symbolism was stronger when attached to practical effort. On VE Day, she saw how national feeling gathered around the crown. In 1947, she turned those lessons into a promise of lifelong service. That is why the story of Princess Elizabeth in the ATS still matters. It did not erase privilege, it did not make her a frontline soldier, it did not make her life ordinary, but it showed the standard she would later use to define herself. She wanted to serve. And for 70 years and 214 days, that became the central claim of her reign.